As Donald Trump zooms into the World Economic Forum conference in Davos, how is global business ethics affected by the ideological clash playing out between the United States and Europe? Business ethics, including environmental, social, and governance, are affected by ideology, as the dynamic between shareholders and key stakeholders like government or customers are influenced by considerations that corporations cannot ignore. Hello, this is Bode or Shosami on Global Business Insights, where we bring ideas and more depth on the business headlines. This episode spotlights Trump's speech at the World Economic Forum ongoing at Davos and the ideological clash that we see playing there. Corporate sustainability reporting, that is CSR, in the European Union specifies rules on social and environmental information companies operating in the EU have to report. But the Marxist view is that CSR are token gestures compensating for injuries inflicted by capitalism. In more recent times, external pressures from social movements and environmental agencies are driving vision and value as we see a capitalization on changing expectations in the popular culture. A new administration in the US is upending the balance, that's the ideological balance, as we see a triangular clash involving the US, Europe, and China, and all this complicating policy for global business players. For example, DEI, that's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs, may be less fashionable, but many companies that embraced it have noticed benefits from fairer gender participation and cultural diversity. Also, the global oil majors were already revising their related goals for a cleaner energy mix based on the economic realities that they were facing. My sense is that on the climate agenda, the economics will increasingly drive corporate decisions more than the social pressure to comply with externally imposed climate targets. So how are companies navigating the ongoing ideological clash? First, some are more proactive in lobbying to influence the ideology. You could call this the high risk, high return Elon Musk model, which most will not recommend, even though more recent social discontent has paved way for a better chance of success with this approach. Second is an adaptive model where companies use the opportunity to review shared values and embrace concepts that work, like most aspects of gender equality or diversity efforts, and continue to maintain boards more representative of society, but still being as responsive as they can to new ideological pressures. Third, you could see companies moving to more neutral hubs. We already saw Singapore, India, Vietnam, and Malaysia attracting businesses who want alternatives to China so as not to be caught in the crossfires. I expect the BRICS partners like South Africa and other African hubs could also benefit as companies recalibrate and diversify, and some are forced by geopolitical considerations to build more flexibility and redundancy, albeit costly, into their supply chain. At the World Economic Forum in Davos yesterday, Trump, president of the world's largest economy, got the expected polite European reception. Trump was blunt and did not mince words. Let's take a clip from his speech yesterday.
On day one, I signed an executive order directing every member of my cabinet to marshal all powers at their disposal to defeat inflation and reduce the cost of daily life. I imposed a federal hiring freeze, a federal regulation freeze, a foreign aid freeze, and I created the new Department of Government Efficiency. I terminated the ridiculous and incredibly wasteful Green New Deal. I call it the Green New Scam. Withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord and ended the insane and costly electric vehicle mandate. We're going to let people buy the car they want to buy. I declared a national energy emergency, and it's so important, national energy emergency, to unlock the liquid gold under our feet and pave the way for rapid approvals of new energy infrastructure. The United States has the largest amount of oil and gas of any country on earth, and we're going to use it. Not only will this reduce the cost of virtually all goods and services, it'll make the United States a manufacturing superpower and the world capital of artificial intelligence and crypto. My administration has also begun the largest deregulation campaign in history, far exceeding even the record-setting efforts of my last term. To further unleash our economy, our majorities in the House and Senate, which we also took along with the presidency, are going to pass the largest tax cut in American history, including massive tax cuts for workers and family, and big tax cuts for domestic producers and manufacturers. And we're working with the Democrats on getting an extension of the original Trump tax cuts, as you probably know, by just reading any paper. My message to every business in the world is very simple. Come make your product in America, and we will give you among the lowest taxes of any nation on earth. But if you don't make your product in America, which is your prerogative, then very simply you will have to pay a tariff, differing amounts, but a tariff which will direct hundreds of billions of dollars and even trillions of dollars into our treasury to strengthen our economy and pay down debt. Under the Trump administration, there will be no better place on earth to create jobs, build factories, or grow a company than right here in the good old USA. Already Americans' economic, you can see this, I think, maybe even in your wonderful, wonderful room that you're all gathered together, so many of my friends, but Americans, the economic confidence is soaring like we haven't seen in many, many decades, maybe not at all. Upon my election, it was just announced that small business optimism skyrocketed by 41 points in a single month. That's the highest ever. There's never been anything like that. SoftBank has announced between a $100 and $200 billion investment in the U.S. economy because of the election result. And just 2 days ago, Oracle, SoftBank, and OpenAI announced a $500 billion investment in AI infrastructure. Other companies likewise have announced billions and billions and billions, adding up to trillions of investment in America, in the United States. And it's also reported today in the papers that Saudi Arabia will be investing at least $600 billion in America, but I'll be asking the Crown Prince, who's a fantastic guy, to round it out to around $1 trillion. I think they'll do that because we've been very good to them. And I'm also going to ask Saudi Arabia and OPEC to bring down the cost of oil. You got to bring it down. If the price came down, the Russia-Ukraine war would end immediately. With oil prices going down, I'll demand that interest rates drop immediately, and likewise, they should be dropping all over the world. Interest rates should follow us. America is back and open for business, and this week, I'm also taking swift action to stop the invasion at our southern border. They allowed people to come in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. It was ridiculous. I decided and declared to do, and very, very importantly, a national emergency on our border, immediately halted all entry of illegal border crossers, of which there were many, and began promptly returning the illegal trespassers back to the place from which they came. That action, as you've probably seen, has already started very strongly. I've deployed active duty U.S. military and National Guard troops to the border to assist in repelling the invasion. It was really an invasion. We will not allow our territory to be violated. After 4 long years, the United States is strong and sovereign and a beautiful nation once again. It's a strong, sovereign nation. In addition, I'm pleased to report that America is also a free nation once again. On day one, I signed an executive order to stop all government censorship. No longer will our government label the speech of our own citizens as misinformation or disinformation, which are the favorite words of censors and those who wish to stop the free exchange of ideas and, frankly, progress. My administration has taken action to abolish all discriminatory diversity, equity, and inclusion nonsense, and these are policies that were absolute nonsense. throughout the government and the private sector. With the recent yet somewhat unexpected great Supreme Court decision just made, America will once again become a merit-based country. And I've made it official, an official policy of the United States, that there are only two genders, male and female. And we will have no men participating in women's sports, and transgender operations, which became the rage, will occur very rarely. Finally, as we restore common sense in America, we're moving quickly to bring back strength and peace and stability abroad. I'm also going to ask all NATO nations to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP, which is what it should have been years ago. I want to talk about the EU, the time everything seems to take to get approved, environmental impact statements for things that you shouldn't even have to do that, and many, many other ways that it takes. And I'm going to give you a quick little example. In the private life, my beautiful private life, before I had all these things happening, the world is a little different. I had a nice, simple life. You knew that. But when I had that simple life, I did projects. And I had a big project in Ireland. And it had to get approval on something that would have made it even better. And I got the approval from Ireland in a period of a week. And it was a very, very, very efficient, good approval. And they informed me, though, the problem is you're going to have to get it from the EU, and we think that'll take 5 to 6 years. And they said, you have to be kidding. And this was before politics. And I said, wait a minute. It's not that important. I don't want to go 5 or 6 years, but it would have been a big investment. It would have been nice, and it would have been good for the project. And I sent the people to the EU to see if they could speed it up. And basically, it was a 5 or 6 year wait just to get a simple approval that Ireland gave me in a period of literally not much more than a week.
Christine Lagarde, president of the European Central Bank at Davos, said it was not pessimistic to say that Europe was facing an existential crisis, and the open declaration of the war by the United States can't be helping. EU is also under pressure to cut regulations and axe plans to raise taxes so they can be more competitive for business. The initial response to the first week of Trump 2.0 is to figure out how much is bluster and how much is going to be real. Perhaps even Trump does not know. Companies are also reviewing their risk matrix to understand the impact of the trend towards US-driven protectionism and the divergence away from the Europe-led and more altruistic social entrepreneurship ideology. Also, as they come to terms with the ideological clash driven by a different leader at the White House. They must quickly decide whether it will indeed be a golden age to tap into or just more chaos to cautiously manage. The successful ones will be better prepared for both possibilities. US stocks keep heading toward all-time highs as oil prices sank after Donald Trump urged OPEC to lower crude prices and said he will push for interest rate cuts. Tech stocks had rallied in a previous session helped by Trump's spending plans for artificial intelligence infrastructure. The Bank of Japan today announced it hiked the policy rate by 25 basis points as year-on-year core inflation rate rose to a 16-month high at 3% in December. In Europe, flash Germany composite PMI was 50.1 in January, up from 48 in December, ending a 6-month sequence of contraction. Eurozone business activity also returns to growth in January. Composite PMI at 50.2, a 5-month high. With moderately below target inflation, the ECB is expected to cut rates when it meets next week. Asia-Pacific markets climbed after the S&P 500 hit fresh record highs, also as the US President Donald Trump called for lower interest rates and cheaper oil prices. Well, that's all we have on this episode of Global Business Insight. Thanks for watching, and please share and subscribe to follow the channel.